On today's episode of Anime Afterthought ReZero, Season 2, Episode 18, The Day Petelgeuse Laughed. Talk about dueling flashbacks. Not only are we in the midst, right in the middle of Amelia's trial, leaving off with a huge cliffhanger in the appearance of Regulus Corneus, the Sin Archbishop of Greed, but starting out today's episode with a little history into the sanctuary as well as unravel its true purpose. It truly feels like my mind's being pulled in separate directions, but I have to say, I absolutely love it. 29.5 minutes of pure fucking delight. Now, what was a mere interruption in last week's episode, this time we're starting out with Ryuzu Shima. This one, well, she's not doing too well. It looks like Shima is depleting. These clones are set up much like spirits, and the fact that she is out of the rotation, it truly looks like she's knocking on death's door. But before she goes, she has a story to tell. This is about the history of the sanctuary, which includes seeing several key figures like Echidna, Roswell Mather's ancestor, and Beatrice. Now, one might wonder, how is Shima in possession of these memories? She is merely a clone. Well, upon entering the graveyard to save Garfield, this was presumably seen as attempting the trial, in which she actually accessed the original Ryuzu Meyer's memories. And this is where our flashback begins, where Meyer is actually introduced to Beatrice. And I have to say, 400 years and it still hasn't changed her almost childish-like arrogance when it comes to her attitude, but after a nice verbal tongue lashing on the merits of humility coming from Echidna, her demeanor does seem to change and the two become close friends. Now, as we progress, we learn that not only is Roswell ancestors involved in the sanctuary, but Echidna does have some kind of dealings with them. But the timeline is not making sense to our grade school dropout. Upon hearing Roswell's name, Subaru is quite confused. I have to be, I can kind of see it. But alas, this intermission allows our group to swap stories of their actual trials, in which Subaru is actually the only one to have met Echidna. But just as Shima is about to unveil the true purpose of the sanctuary, we cut back to Amelia's trial. Once again, Regulus has made his appearance. Now, before a giant reveal is about to take place, he does give us some more information. It's the fact that Goose is a part of the witch's trial. It's not just the robe, it's the fact that he is part of this church. I think church and witch's cult, it's synonymous. The church of the witch or the church of the witch's cult or whatever. As it seems, he was in charge of safeguarding Iliar Forest and wants to know why the Sin Archbishop of Greed is there. But he also retorts as to Goose's unique genetic makeup. Now, we all knew that Goose had this amazing ability, the ability to switch his soul from vessel to vessel, his little fingers. That's what made defeating him in the original season so difficult. I think this is in part is because Petelgeuse is actually a spirit, and this actually might add to the reason behind his reaction to Amelia. I mean, it's a spirit tamer, but like you're also mixed up with the church itself, so it's like I'm not 100% sure if that's like telling, but yeah. While this information to me is quite enlightening, the bomb that is about to drop is mind-boggling. I don't know how to take this, as Goose is confronting Regulus. Out of nowhere, a little girl appears, and thanks to the name drop coming from Fortuna in the way of an attack, this is Pandora, the Witch of Vanity. Now, I had to look it up. I'm pretty sure, or at least by common knowledge, there are 7 deadly sins, but in reality, vanity, or its predecessor, Vanglory, was actually considered a sin. Now, at this point in the story, this is only 100 years. We know for the fact that the other witches of sin, are dead and Satella is sealed, which leads me to believe that she is not an original member of the Witches of Sin, but given her amazing fucking abilities, I think this moniker is gonna be spot on. But let's just go forward. Now, also thanks to Fortuna name dropping Pandora, we also get that maybe she's the reason possibly behind Amelia's parents not being here. I don't know if it's death or whatever, but as Fortuna goes in for the attack, this is for my brother and his wife. I mean, that's kind of on the nose, but you know what they say about assumptions. But I have to say, the main question I had last week is, why is Regulus showing up? And Pandora lets us know, like, they're there for the seal and the key. They wish to fulfill the cult's long cherished desire. Now, another reason I believe that Goose is part of, the witches cult slash church, is the fact that Pandora keeps referring him to as Bishop. Now, of course, nothing is happening in the ways of the attack. They're all failing. Regulus's power is fucking ridiculous. I still can't tell what the fuck is going on. It's beyond invincibility. The dude seems like a legit fucking juggernaut. Goose, seeing the writing on the wall, urges Fortuna to take Amelia and just fucking run. Concerned, in the end, they still agree to go with his wishes and they dip. But Goose is not without a backup plan, as Regulus is absolutely shocked to see him take out this small black box. And in it is the same aura we see emanating from Subaru's stomach when he unleashes the unseen hand. This, in fact, is the witch's factor. Knowing he doesn't have the mental knowledge, the preparation to ascertain its true power, it was still meant for this event. Before plunging the box into the chest, we do get a very interesting statement from Goose, apologizing to someone as Fugle-sama, after in which he unleashes the unseen hand, throwing Regulus like a fucking ragdoll. But it looks like his body is beginning to reject what has just been entered into it. And I think his later insane demeanor can possibly be attributed to the incompatibility with this witch's factor, which he was well aware of, mixed with his strong beliefs, going from conviction to obsession. But even with this newfound power, Regulus's ability approves just too fucking much. Now, as the battle is at a stalemate, Akina informs Amelia that something has transpired with Fortuna and her past self, as she is reminded by the Witch of Greed why she is there in the first place. The two are transported to see the events about to unfold. Remember, Amelia is a child. She's completely confused about what's going on, but she is adamant on staying with Fortuna. But Fortuna, she has responsibilities that will have far-reaching impacts if she were just to abandon them. So when Archie comes to inform the pair that the village is actually under attack, this is her chance for the two to split, but not before Fortuna makes an eerily similar promise to Amelia that sounds more reminiscent of something Puck would say, even referring to her as Leah, promising she will always be with her. The two eventually part ways. Amelia is utterly distraught by the events that just transpired, believing everything is her fault, in which Archie is trying his damnedest to reassure her that it isn't, and his attempt is actually thwarted by that of the Black Serpent, the third great mob beast created by Daphne, the Witch of Gluttony, which leads me to wonder, is it mere coincidence that this grand mob beast is showing up now, or is it being controlled by Regulus or Pandora? But alas, I just don't know, for the attack on Archie is spreading fast, and the only thing he can do is sever the leg and freeze it, but this is only slowing it down. Archie tells Amelia to run and not look back. Now, meanwhile, Fortuna has made it back to Goose, now missing an arm on the verge of defeat, but Regulus's advances are called off by Pandora, telling the Sin Archbishop to calm his anger. Not liking being told what to do, he attacks Pandora, vaporizing her into a mist of blood. And as everything seems lost, Fortuna is once again urged to leave, but refuses, proclaiming that she doesn't want to reside in a world without Goose, and if he were to die, she'd rather be by his side. Pissed at their conversation, once again seemingly ignoring him, Regulus closes in to finish the job, until Pandora once again appears, reiterating him to calm his anger, while shoving the Sin Archbishop into the ground. I mean, I guess that's one way to take care of a juggernaut. Proclaiming his job is fulfilled and his duties are done, he is to leave. If it's not by his own volition, it will be by hers. And with the words, Regulus Corneus should not be here, he should be home surrounded by his wives, the Sin Archbishop is gone. And it's as if the battle never took place. Everything has been altered to a previous state. The land, which was marred with craters and the trees thrown asunder, is once again peaceful, and even Goose's severed arm is reattached. This is beyond mere temporal manipulation. It's as if Pandora was able to alter fate, to pick and choose which parts to leave in and others to change. Her power is scary. And of course, Goose and Fortuna are picking up on this, as we see them gear up to what looks like their final assault. As their chants begin, Pandora seems unconcerned and is more fascinated by their resolve. And as we cut back to little Amelia, now on her own, she is left with her thoughts, her shortcomings. Is this all her fault? Was there nothing she she could do, if it means saving the people she loves and the seal is the one thing they're after, why not give it to him? Completely unconcerned with the repercussions as a child would be, her path once again is being led by the fairies. The spirits take her to the seal, and where we see Pandora waiting, leaving me with one question. Does Pandora now have the seal and the key? Like I said, today's episode was fucking ridiculous. Bravo to the voice actors. Everything was just gut-wrenchingly, emotionally devastating. Like, you could feel everything that they were going through. It was absolutely amazing. Not to mention the amount of information, how dense today's episode was. We were possibly introduced to, I don't know, the new generation, version 2.0 of the Witch of Sin in Pandora, the Witch of Vanity, uncovering the truth behind Goose, as well as witnessing obtain the witch's factor. Not to mention, who is Fugle? These are some puzzle pieces I never knew were missing. Not to mention, they're starting to slowly unravel the history of the sanctuary, that it's not merely this experimental facility for Echidna, that it actually may have served another purpose. Talk about continuity when it comes to things like the black serpent showing up in Elia Forest. We can kind of assume, given the frozen bonds, what's gonna happen, i.e. the little bits of sentient poison left behind in its wake. While today's episode does an amazing job of filling in the blanks, we are still left with a lot of questions. But for now, I'm going to sit and contemplate on what an amazing episode it was. So with all that being said and more ReZero next week, I honestly cannot wait for future episodes.